This is Goku-san DBZ and welcome back for the final Halloween themed video. We are now at October 31st, All Hallows Eve. I hope everyone has a good and safe Halloween. With that said, it is time to look at the last top 5 list. This is my personal picks for top 5 favorite horror games on the PlayStation 4. Now, keep in mind includes crossover, horror themed with other elements also included. With that said, I have 3 honorable mentions this time. First up, a game I think more people need to try and I highly recommend. First honorable mention goes to Resident Evil Revelations. Now, personally, this game, I have a real fondness for it, but then again, Jill has always been one of my personal favorite characters in the franchise as a whole. Next up of the honorable mentions, we have a really cool, less well known indie horror game. If you get a chance to play this, I do highly recommend it, especially if you're into more classic style Japanese horror like Ringu, as well as many other great classic Japanese horror films. This is a very good game. I highly recommend it. Yes, it's only rated T, believe it or not. But it is still good and definitely has some good, I think, creepy elements. I do have a few technical issues here and there with it, but overall, I still have to highly recommend this game to anyone. If you like more classic Japanese style horror, this is definitely a game I would recommend you check out. Because it's actually quite fun, plus it's always good to support an indie developer. Last of the honorable mentions, another T rated, done by Namco Bandai. Very much heavily influenced. It's more like, I guess you could say, unsettling rather than traditional horror, and it's a platformer. But it has basically that really cool stop motion style animation they use in it, and that is what I think really helps sell the creepiness factor of Little Nightmares. I do highly recommend also the second game as well. But if you like Tim Burton style, like horror and stuff, and his claymation style and everything, trust me, if you're a fan of Tim Burton's work, you're definitely going to appreciate Little Nightmare. It's actually a really good unsettling game. It's a great, I think, introduction horror game to maybe younger gamers and stuff who haven't really played yet any traditional horror games. This might be a good idea actually to introduce them to. Plus, it's also a solid, great platformer on top of it. Coming in at first at number 5, which I'm glad I got through Play Asia like 2 years ago, and that's the remaster version of Fatal Frame Maiden of Blackwater. This comes in at number 5 for me. It is definitely has the classic era, definitely Fatal Frame feel to it of games such as Fatal Frame. I would say specifically, there's quite a few elements in this game that remind me more of actually Fatal Frame 3 Tormented, but at the same time, at least art direction and like the stage design stuff, elements definitely also remind me of my personal favorite, Fatal Frame 2 Crimson Butterfly. But still, Maiden of Blackwater is a great game, and I highly recommend this game to anyone. If you get the chance, try this out or the remaster of Lunar Eclipse, which I still have yet to actually play, and I definitely do want to play it. But if you get a chance and you like Koei Tecmo, Team Ninja and stuff, I do highly recommend, frankly, any of these games. But if you're looking for some for PS4, a really good classic style horror game, you can't go much better than Fatal Frame. With that said, coming in at number 4 is definitely a good one that really shocked me, in all honesty. And that is, given it's based more off of movies and stuff, I was surprised actually how genuinely creepy. I would say out the top 5 on here, this is probably the creepiest one, in my opinion, or at least will make you hold your breath and definitely some great jump scares. And it's very well deserved jump scares, in my opinion. For me, at 4 is Alien, well, Alien Isolation. And this is more specifically a special edition. But definitely, it's a great survival type of game when you're trying to hide from the NPC. And unlike Colonial Marines game, the actual UI, computer and stuff of the actual xenomorph is top tier level. I think pretty challenging overall, definitely to try to hide from. If you like good stealth type games with a lot of heavy emphasis on suspense and horror, you can't go much better. And given the fact it's a movie tie-in type game, it's kind of insane how good this game actually ended up. I never expected it. But luckily, Yahtzee's positive review on it years back got me to check out the game, and I have to say thank you to Yahtzee. Coming in number 3 is definitely a good one, and probably the most recent, at least for me, though it's definitely more action-based and heavily influenced by Resident Evil 4. That is Resident Evil Village, aka Resident Evil 8. Village is really good. Where it really excels in is in the storytelling perspective, and I definitely like the old, like, gothic and more medieval feel of the first section. Of course, when you're dealing with a certain lady, giant, yeah, and you want to hide from her witches and stuff. It's creepy. Plus, you also have Lycan as well, which is kind of cool and interesting, going more for a mythological perspective on it. It's definitely different, but also it's great to see the merchant made a return, which of course was Resident Evil 4. But with that said, I even more so, my favorite part of the 4 sections is the mansion. Section 2 after the castle. And you have to deal with that evil, like, demonic, self-aware and alive doll. Yeah, that is easily the creepiest part of the entire game. That really gave me real head nods and nostalgia of Resident Evil original slash remake, and I really appreciate that. There's definitely a lot of strengths to Village, in my opinion. Coming at number 2 is interestingly the only 2D horror game on here, but it is a game that deserves all the love it gets. Coming at number 2 is Darkwood. Darkwood, some people, like I've said before, some people would say you can't really do horror in a 2D environment perspective. Well, Darkwood would beg to differ. The actual environment, the music, the atmosphere in 2D is superb and great. I mean, if you don't believe you can do even like a really old classic like horror game in 2D, point and click, tell that to a little game called Clock Tower. But with that said, Darkwood is a game I always recommend highly to anyone, as it is also my top 10 favorite indie games of all time. Coming at number 1, should not be too much of a surprise. For me, at number 1 is Resident Evil 7, or Biohazard. But with that said, what really does it though, the game itself, I would say if I base it strictly on the basic game experience, it would probably be in 3rd place or 2nd place. But what really puts it over for me is playing the game in VR. That is what sold me on Resident Evil 7, as it was the only second ever game I played in VR. And playing Resident Evil 7 in VR is an experience unto itself, and I can't describe how amazing and creepy as hell the game is when you're looking around stuff and the jump scares happen, especially when you're wearing a headset and stuff, and jumps like right in front of your little face and stuff. This is a game that really implemented the VR correctly. This is how you do VR or horror in a more realistic approach. And Resident Evil 7 really blew it up, in my opinion. If I ever eventually get a chance to try the next generation, I would love to play RE Village in VR. And Resident Evil 4 Remake in VR, I think, would be amazing experiences. But 7 in VR is insanely good and creepy. It's just insane. How much this will mess with your head in VR, it's absurd. I can't even count how many times I nearly had panic attacks. But that's the sign of a good horror game, in my opinion. But with that said, that is it. That is my top 5 favorite horror games for, well, the PS4. With that said, stay safe and have a good Halloween, everyone. Stay safe. Again, I'll see you all next time. Most likely November 1st, All Saints Day. See you then.